Have you ever noticed that the more you reflect, the more distant you feel from everyone else? Like the deeper your thoughts run, the harder it becomes to connect. You're not imagining it. Intelligence doesn't just shine, it exposes. It highlights your blind spots, your unasked questions, your inherited beliefs. And when someone makes you question your mental foundation, your instinct isn't always curiosity, it's defense. This is why the majority often shuts down intellectual dissent, even when it's based on undeniable truths. This deep-rooted preference for comfort over complexity explains why intellectuals, philosophers, and scientists frequently struggle to win widespread acceptance during their lifetimes. Look at today's digital world. Who grabs the spotlight on social media? Rarely the deep thinkers. Instead, viral sensations are those who can shrink complicated ideas into quick, feel-good sound bites. Thought-provoking conversations struggle to gain traction because depth demands time and attention. Meanwhile, viral content thrives on instant emotional hits, controversy, outrage, humor. Algorithms feed this hunger for engagement, pushing content that ignites strong reactions over measured, rational discourse. The result: echo chambers where people only encounter ideas that confirm what they already believe. This insulates them from fresh perspectives and makes intellectual challenges feel threatening. Deep thinkers who question mainstream narratives often find themselves ignored, misunderstood, or even attacked. But the resistance to deep thinking isn't just a digital age problem. It's baked into the very institutions meant to shape us: our schools, workplaces, and political systems. Take education. Schools claim to value intelligence, but their systems reward obedience over independent thought. Students who memorize and repeat what they're told rise to the top. Those who question or challenge authority are often labeled troublemakers or rebels. In the workplace, it's not always the brightest or most innovative employees who succeed. Instead, companies favor those who blend into the existing culture and uphold the current power structures. Innovation is welcome only when it doesn't rock the boat too much. Politics follows a similar pattern. Leaders who speak uncomfortable truths or present logical, unpopular ideas often lose to those who simply say what people want to hear. It's not arrogance that makes people pull away from the deep thinker. It's fear. Fear of being shown how little we truly know. Charisma beats intellect every time. This cycle reveals why many of history's most brilliant minds were marginalized or ignored during their lifetimes. Their ideas were viewed as threats, not treasures. Society loves to claim it values intelligence, innovation, and critical thinking, but in practice, it rewards conformity and simplicity. The uncomfortable truth is that deep thinkers challenge the very foundations that keep society comfortable. So, what's the takeaway? Deep thinkers aren't broken or doomed. They're navigating a system not built for them. To thrive, they must learn to translate complexity into accessible ideas, pick their battles wisely, and find communities that celebrate depth over convenience. Understanding these forces gives deep thinkers the tools to survive and even thrive in a world that often favors the easy over the profound. And while society may resist change, history shows that true progress always comes from those brave enough to think differently, no matter the cost. History only celebrates true brilliance once it's safe, accepted, and no longer challenges the status quo. Think about it. Galileo was locked away for his discoveries, yet today we hail him as a pioneer of science. Van Gogh died poor and unrecognized, but now his art commands millions. Nikola Tesla transformed how we use energy, but died in obscurity and neglect. Society doesn't welcome intelligence when it threatens its foundations, it only honors it later once it becomes harmless. So if deep thinkers often face rejection, what can they do? If you've ever felt alienated for your profound thoughts, know you're in powerful company. Throughout history, the most brilliant minds were frequently misunderstood, mocked, punished, or ignored. Their ideas were dangerous, disruptive, or just too advanced for their time. Fear of feeling small in a world we thought we understood. The mirror effect is real. Deep thinkers don't have to speak to provoke, they just have to exist. They shared one thing: they were ahead of their era, and they paid the price for their wisdom. Take Socrates, for example, the father of Western philosophy. He dedicated his life to questioning accepted truths, pushing people to think critically and abandon blind tradition. But instead of praise, he faced a deadly trial, accused of corrupting youth and disrespecting the gods. His real crime, encouraging independent thought, offered a chance to escape. Socrates chose to drink poison, refusing to betray his beliefs. His last words, "The unexamined life is not worth living," still echo as a testament to courage in the face of conformity. His death was a stark warning. Society fears those who disrupt its core ideas. Then there's Galileo. His offense was unveiling a truth that rocked the foundations of religious authority, that the earth orbits the sun. For centuries, the church maintained control by dictating accepted knowledge, so Galileo's discovery was heresy. He was forced to recant under threat of torture, and spent his final years under house arrest, with his work banned for decades. Today he's celebrated as one of history's greatest scientists. His story shows that even undeniable facts face rejection if they threaten those in power. Nietzsche's philosophy was another blow to comfort. He challenged traditional morality, called out society's reliance on comforting lies, and argued that true strength lies in creating one's own values. His ideas were too radical, too unsettling for his time. Labeled insane and ignored, Nietzsche's work was dismissed until today, when his thoughts shape psychology, literature, and existentialism. His concepts on power and morality have transformed modern philosophy, proving that society often shuns visionary thinkers only to embrace them later. Their mere presence challenges the collective comfort, and comfort for most is sacred. That's why deep thinkers are often misunderstood. Nikola Tesla was a visionary dreamer, envisioning free, wireless energy for the world and technologies that could have revolutionized human life. But his ideas threatened powerful industrialists like Thomas Edison and J.P. Morgan, who profited from selling electricity. Tesla's innovations were sidelined, and he died largely forgotten. This shows how entrenched power resists disruptive intelligence that threatens profit and control. What these stories have in common is society's tendency to reject genius when it disrupts comfort and existing structures. Intelligence that questions, challenges, or reveals inconvenient truths is often met with suspicion or hostility. Only when ideas become widely accepted and pose no threat do they gain celebration. For deep thinkers today, this history offers both warning and hope. Feeling isolated or misunderstood doesn't mean you're wrong. It might mean you're ahead of your time. The very resistance you face often signals that your ideas have the power to shake foundations. Navigating this can be tough, but understanding that rejection is part of the process can help. The path to lasting influence is rarely easy. It's often marked by struggle, but those who persevere, like Socrates, Galileo, Nietzsche, and Tesla, eventually reshape the world. So, if you feel unseen or alienated for your depth, remember, you're walking a path trod by the greatest minds. Your challenge is to hold on to your vision, refine your ideas, and find ways to communicate them with clarity and resilience. Because one day, what society once feared will become the wisdom it cherishes, and you might just be the one to lead the way. Isolated, or worse, labeled as too intense, too serious, or too much. But what they really are is too awake. The idea of changing the world doesn't scare people. What scares them is how much they'd have to change themselves to keep up with it. Just look at Nikola Tesla. He envisioned a future powered by free, wireless energy. No bills, no wires, just innovation for everyone. But instead of celebration, he got isolation. He died, broke, alone in a hotel room, while others made fortunes off the pieces of his genius. Tesla's story isn't just about a man, it's about how society often favors comfort and control over groundbreaking truth. Then, there's Alan Turing. The man decoded the Nazi Enigma machine. His brilliance shortened World War II and saved millions of lives, and yet he wasn't given medals. He was given a prison sentence for his sexuality, forced into chemical castration. Turing died by suicide at 41. Today, he's remembered as the father of artificial intelligence. But back then, he was seen as disposable, another mind too great to be understood by the world around him. And let's not pretend this only happened to men. Hypatia of Alexandria shattered the norms of her time. She was a philosopher, mathematician, astronomer, a woman teaching rational thought in a society ruled by religious authority. That made her dangerous. In 415 AD, a mob dragged her through the streets and brutally ended her life, not for any crime, but for daring to think beyond tradition. Her death wasn't just a tragedy, it was a message. Progress is always punished when it threatens power. What do these stories have in common? All these thinkers saw further than the rest. And in a world built on distraction, being awake is a revolutionary act. You've probably felt it yourself. You bring up a profound question at dinner, and suddenly, the room goes silent. And for that, they paid a price. Society didn't fear their intelligence, it feared what their intelligence would change. Power structures, beliefs, habits. Deep thinking shakes all of that. And for many, that's just too much to handle. So, where does that leave you? If you've ever felt like your thoughts go deeper than the room can handle, you're not broken. You're not weird, you're just ahead of the curve. But knowing that doesn't make it easy. Being a deep thinker in a shallow world can feel lonely, misunderstood, exhausting. So what can you do? First, recognize this. Not every room deserves your mind. You don't have to share your deepest thoughts with everyone. Save them for those who are ready, who are curious, who want to understand, not just react. The right people will value your depth, even if they're rare. Second, seek your tribe. Read books that challenge you. Find online spaces that embrace nuance. Build circles where questions are more important than answers. Even one true intellectual connection can change your entire path. Third, learn to translate. Einstein said, if you can't explain it simply, you don't understand it well enough. Simplicity isn't dumbing down, it's sharpening. Make your thoughts clear, your insights digestible. Great thinkers aren't just thinkers, they're communicators. That's how ideas survive. Fourth, don't lose your edge just to fit in. Schopenhauer once said, talent hits a target no one else can hit. Genius hits a target no one else can see. You may see what others don't, that's your gift. But gifts require patience, resilience, and faith, especially when the world hasn't caught up yet. You express a concern about the world, and people change the subject. You're not being dramatic, you're touching nerves most don't even know they have. Being a deep thinker isn't a curse, it's a responsibility. You're holding the seeds of tomorrow in your mind, and sure, today might not celebrate you. But tomorrow, it just might be built on what you're thinking right now. So if you've ever been dismissed for going too deep, or told to lighten up when all you wanted was a real conversation, don't let it silence you. You're not alone, and you're not wrong. Let's talk about it. Have you ever felt like your thoughts didn't belong? Drop your experience in the comments. Let's start a conversation that actually matters. And if you've ever felt like the world moves too fast to notice thinkers like you, maybe that's because it's waiting for you to lead. Because here's the truth. Society doesn't change with the crowd. It changes with the individual, bold enough to stand alone, to think deeply, to question loudly, to see what others won't. Einstein once said, great spirits have always encountered violent opposition from mediocre minds. And that still rings true. The deeper your thoughts, the louder the resistance. But resistance isn't a stop sign. It's confirmation you're on to something real. Throughout history, change didn't begin in boardrooms or voting booths. It started in quiet corners, with one person asking the question no one else would. And the moment they dared to say it out loud, the world began to shift. So if you've ever felt like your mind lives in a world 5 years ahead of everyone else, good. Stay there. That's where innovation is born. That's where revolutions begin. But remember this, deep thinking isn't about being smarter. It's about being braver. But here's the thing, this isn't a curse. It's a calling. If you think deeply, you're not broken, you're just early. Braver to sit with uncomfortable truths, braver to unlearn what you were taught, braver to build new frameworks when the old ones no longer serve. You don't need a massive audience to start making impact. You just need clarity, courage, and consistency. Your voice matters not because it's loud, but because it's true. So talk about the things that light your soul on fire. Write the ideas that scare you a little. Share the questions no one else is asking. That's how we move forward, not by shouting over each other, but by daring to go deeper when everyone else is staying shallow. Because here's the deal, surface level talk is safe, but truth shakes things. And deep thinkers, you're the ones holding the shovel. This world doesn't just need entertainers, It needs interpreters, people who can look at chaos and pull meaning out of it. People who can turn silence into substance. The more complex the world gets, the more valuable deep thought becomes, not as an escape but as a compass. So if you feel like no one understands the way you process things, if your mind connects dots others can't even see, lean into that. Don't water yourself down. Don't translate your thoughts into bite-sized slogans just because it's easier to digest. Let your mind be what it is, expansive, questioning, alive. Find the few who get it, build with them, challenge each other, grow through it, and above all, protect your curiosity. You're living at a depth others haven't reached yet. And that's not something to fix, that's something to honor. So what do? Do you shrink, hew, hide, speak less? No. The world will try to trade it for comfort. Don't take that deal. We're not here to blend in, we're here to wake things up. So if you've made it this far, you already know you're different. You already know you're not here just to consume the world. You're here to reimagine it. So let's keep going. Let's keep thinking. Let's keep building. Let's keep asking. And if you're ready to dive deeper into the minds of history's boldest thinkers, if you're ready to see the world not just as it is, but as it could be, then you're in the right place. This is just the beginning. Hit that subscribe button. Stick around. The journey into truth is only getting started. You get smart about where you pour your thoughts. You find kindred minds, people who don't flinch at the truth. Society has never truly embraced deep thinkers, not in their prime, not when they were alive, not when their ideas rattled the foundations of comfort and convenience. People who crave it, you stop shouting into rooms that weren't built to hear you, and instead, you whisper to those who are listening. You learn, as the greatest minds did, that impact isn't always immediate. It brews, it echoes, it survives beyond applause. Some of the most important thoughts in history weren't accepted, they were endured. So, if you feel like an outsider for thinking deeply, you're not alone. You're just walking a path that many fear to tread, but walk it anyway. Deep thinkers don't walk into a room looking for conflict, yet somehow, conflict finds them. Not in the form of arguments or hostility, but in cold shoulders, polite nods, and forced smiles that never reach the eyes. It's not because they said something offensive, it's because they made people feel something uncertainty. And in a world addicted to certainty, that's enough to make you an outsider. When a deep thinker speaks, they don't demand attention, they demand reflection. But most minds aren't ready to look inward, so instead of curiosity, they get resistance. Instead of discussion, dismissal. The mind goes into self-preservation mode. It's not about agreeing or disagreeing, it's about defending the ego. This is the quiet tragedy of the intellectual, the philosopher, the visionary. They don't retreat because they crave solitude, they're pushed into it, passed to the edges not for being wrong, but for seeing too much. Strangely, confidence often wins over clarity. Studies reveal that in social settings, people gravitate toward those who appear certain even if their ideas are shallow. History doesn't lie. It remembers the names but forgets the scars. Bruno burned at the stake. Turing died in disgrace. Why? Because certainty is comforting. Confidence, even when unfounded, feels safe. It's easy to follow someone who speaks with absolute conviction. It's much harder to listen to someone who speaks with nuance, who explores every angle instead of pushing a ready-made answer. This is why charismatic influencers and surface-level thinkers dominate the spotlight. They feed people what they already believe. They confirm, not confront. And that's always an easier sell. Meanwhile, deep thinkers, they question the obvious. They challenge what's convenient. They don't hand out affirmations, they hand out mirrors. And as we've seen, people don't always like what they see. This is the paradox of intelligence. The more you uncover truth, the more alone you might become. The mirror effect doesn't just reflect flaws in the system. It reveals why the system avoids transformation. Deep thought doesn't break things, it reveals what's already broken. But is there real proof that intelligence makes people uncomfortable? Neuroscience says yes. Brain scans show that when someone feels intellectually inferior, the amygdala, the brain's fear center, lights up like a warning flare. That's the same area activated during a threat response. In other words, intelligence doesn't just unsettle, it scares. But why? Why would a deeper idea feel as threatening as physical danger? The answer goes back to evolution. Early humans survived not by being the smartest, but by staying in the group. Being accepted meant safety, being rejected, isolation, and isolation meant death. So our brains evolved to prioritize group harmony over individual insight. That wiring hasn't changed. When a deep thinker speaks in a social group, they unknowingly disrupt that harmony. Hypatia was torn apart by a mob. These weren't rebels, they were visionaries. And what did they all have in common? They saw something the world wasn't ready to face. Not because they intend to, but because their insight questions the tribe's shared beliefs. The group feels threatened, not by the person but by the disruption of equilibrium. And the brain reacts. Enemy detected. This is why intelligent people often struggle in group dynamics. It's not their lack of social skill, it's their surplus of mental depth. They stand out in a world designed to reward fitting in. A fascinating 2021 study from Stanford dug deeper. It found that deep thinkers are more accepted in one-on-one settings. But in groups, the threat level rises. Why? Because social comparison kicks in. In groups, people worry more about how others see them. If someone feels intellectually overshadowed, they may try to undermine the deep thinker not out of malice, but to protect their status. That's why you'll often find the best conversations happening behind closed doors, in long walks, late-night talks, or quiet corners. Not because truth fears the crowd, but because the crowd often fears the truth. So if you're a deep thinker and feel like you don't quite belong, don't shrink. Don't change. Just understand. You're not too much. You're simply not made for shallow waters. Many cognitive biases help explain why intelligence often triggers pushback rather than praise. Take the Dunning-Kruger effect. People with limited knowledge tend to wildly overestimate their expertise, while genuinely intelligent individuals are more likely to question themselves. This imbalance breeds tension. Those who know little confidently dismiss those who know more. It's a classic clash between ignorance and insight. The truth is, society doesn't reject intelligence, it rejects discomfort, it rejects change. And deep thinkers, they are walking, breathing discomfort. Then there's status quo bias. Our brains crave the familiar. New complex truths disrupt comfort zones, stirring unease. Intelligence doesn't just add information, it shakes foundations. People instinctively cling to what they know because it feels safe. Deep ideas, they threaten that safety. Add the backfire effect to the mix. When faced with facts that contradict beliefs, people rarely change their minds. Instead, they double down, fortifying their original positions. This psychological shield makes intellectual conversations an uphill battle. Deep thinkers often encounter this resistance firsthand, as their ideas can feel like personal attacks rather than open dialogue. In today's digital era, these natural defenses are magnified. Social media algorithms thrive on engagement, not enlightenment. Controversial, emotionally charged posts spread like wildfire, overshadowing carefully reasoned, thoughtful discussions. Think about the viral content you see: short, punchy, and often misleading. Nuisance rarely makes the cut. Deep thinkers with their complex ideas struggle to boil down profound concepts into quick, catchy soundbites. The result: society increasingly values entertainment over enlightenment, making it tougher for serious thought to gain traction. So, what does this mean for those who think deeply? The rejection of intelligence isn't just a social quirk, it's woven into our biology, psychology, and culture. It's part of human nature, reinforced by social groups and turbocharged by technology. But this doesn't imply deep thinkers should stay silent. Instead, they must recognize the invisible forces stacked against them. If society resists intelligence, then what does it embrace? The answer: comfort. A world where predictability and easy answers reign supreme, where uncomfortable truths are politely avoided. Arthur Schopenhauer, one of history's most candid philosophers, saw intelligence not as a blessing, but a curse. Unlike optimists who equate intelligence with success, he believed the smarter a person is, the harder it becomes to connect with the masses, not because they try to be, but because the depth of their mind forces people to look inward, and that's a terrifying mirror. Why? Because intelligence breeds a unique burden. Schopenhauer's idea of the will helps explain this: the blind, irrational force driving human behavior. Most people live guided by the will to live, chasing pleasure, security and survival above all else. But deeply intelligent minds operate differently. Instead of blindly following instincts, they cultivate what Schopenhauer called the will to truth, a relentless pursuit to understand reality, no matter the cost. Where the average person seeks comfort and avoids harsh realities, deep thinkers embrace discomfort and painful truths. This creates a profound rift. While many find meaning in relationships, entertainment and daily routines, deep thinkers often see these as distractions from life's weightier questions. Schopenhauer argued that the more someone comprehends human nature, the harder it is to relate to others. Deep thinkers perceive the lies, the self-deceptions, the facades that most accept without question. This clarity isolates them, making everyday interactions feel shallow or frustrating. But here's the paradox: this very struggle is what fuels progress. Every leap forward in science, philosophy, and culture has come from minds willing to endure alienation and discomfort. They challenge norms, question certainties, and expose inconvenient realities. Yes, it's lonely. Yes, it's often painful. But it's also necessary. So, if you find yourself thinking too much, feeling misunderstood, or longing for conversations that dive beneath the surface, know this: your experience is not a flaw. It's a sign of seeing beyond the veil. It's a mark of courage, of willingness to face truths others shy away from. Schopenhauer said it best: clarity is a curse. Seeing things as they are, not as we wish them to be, is a burden most people don't want to carry. The world may not always welcome you. It may resist your insights, your questions, even your presence. But change begins with discomfort. Growth requires challenge, and deep thinkers are the catalysts of transformation. Keep questioning, keep pushing, because in a world desperate for comfort, your intelligence is the spark that ignites evolution. Social interactions are often a dance of small talk, subtle power plays, and polite half-truths. For deep thinkers, who prioritize truth over appearances, this can feel suffocating. They long for substance, yet society gravitates towards simplicity. Most people enjoy light, surface-level chatter, while deep thinkers hunger for conversations that cut beneath the surface. This mismatch makes everyday socializing exhausting, leaving deep thinkers bored, disconnected, and misunderstood. They see beyond the fleeting ambitions that drive most money, status, romantic pursuits, and often question their very meaning. Schopenhauer described desire and ambition as illusions, distractions from reality that most blindly chase. For deep thinkers, these pursuits can seem empty, even pointless. This gap in perspective creates a chasm between them and the majority, making deep thinkers appear aloof or indifferent to what excites others. That distance breeds alienation. The presence of a deep thinker can unsettle people, because it forces them to confront uncomfortable truths about themselves, truths many would rather ignore. Schopenhauer famously compared intelligence to a heightened awareness, a gift that can feel like a curse. The more you understand, the harder it becomes to ignore the world's imperfections, and the lonelier you become. He believed happiness and intelligence share an inverse relationship, ignorance, not knowledge, being the true key to contentment. This explains why history's greatest intellectuals, Pascal, Kafka, and others often battled depression, existential dread, and social isolation. Because ignorance, for many, is not just bliss, it's armor. So why does the world treat deep thinkers like threats? The answer is hidden in how we protect our identity. They saw the world with clarity, but suffered the burden of that clarity. Yet, Schopenhauer didn't leave deep thinkers without hope. He suggested ways to manage the loneliness intelligence brings. First, embrace solitude. He saw being alone not as punishment, but as privilege. For deep thinkers, solitude offers the freedom to dive into intellectual or creative pursuits without the need for societal approval. It's a chance to cultivate the mind in peace. Second, find your tribe. Instead of forcing yourself into mainstream social circles, seek out those who share your mindset, whether through books, philosophy, or niche communities. Meaningful connection with like-minded individuals can ease isolation and nurture growth. Third, Engage with the world wisely. Schopenhauer cautioned against unloading complex ideas on those unprepared to receive them. Instead, observe society, learn its rhythms, and choose your moments and words carefully. This strategic engagement preserves your energy and increases your impact. His wisdom resonates deeply with anyone grappling with social rejection due to their intellect. Yes, intelligence often leads to loneliness, but it also brings freedom, insight, and a richer understanding of life. It's a double-edged sword, a source of both power and pain. Intelligence allows you to see reality in sharp relief, but it also sets you apart from those who prefer comforting illusions. Society doesn't reject deep thinkers because they're wrong. They reject them because they reveal truths too soon, truths people aren't ready to face. So, if you've ever felt isolated by your own thoughts or overwhelmed by the superficiality around you, know this: you are not broken. If you see someone stronger, you might feel inspired. You hit the gym. Someone richer, maybe you hustle harder. But intelligence, that hits different. You are simply seeing the world for what it truly is, even when others choose to look away. In this light, solitude becomes your sanctuary, your sharp intellect your compass, and your unique perspective, a gift not a curse. Your journey is one of courage, not compromise. And though the path may be lonely, it's also the path to authentic freedom and understanding. What does this really mean for deep thinkers? Are they destined to walk a lonely road, or is there a way to balance intellectual depth with navigating society? The hard truth is, society wasn't designed to nurture deep thinking, it's designed to preserve stability. Most people choose comfort over confrontation. This is why superficial chats, simplified ideas, and repetitive content flood our social spaces. But why does comfort take precedence over intellectual challenge? Why does society resist progress even when it promises growth? The answer lies deep in our psychology and the structures that mold us from childhood. At its core, the human brain craves certainty and familiarity. Evolution has wired us to avoid mental discomfort, a phenomenon psychologists call cognitive ease. Cognitive ease means the brain favors information that's simple and known because it takes less energy to process. When something is complex, nuanced, or unfamiliar, the brain flags it as difficult or worse, dangerous. This instinct is a survival mechanism, but it also makes us resistant to new ideas. Then there's system justification theory. It explains why people cling to the status quo, even when it's flawed or harmful. Instead of questioning authority or outdated beliefs, most rationalize them. Change is simply too unsettling. Groupthink plays its part too. The fear of social rejection pushes people to conform to popular opinions rather than risk standing out with dissenting ideas.